And a TGIF, everybody. Welcome into the First Call podcast alongside handicapper Scott Shapiro. I'm Jeremy Plonk. Special welcome to those of you watching within the confines of the First and VEASAN Travers Stakes Wager Guide. Great to have you along. We're going to talk about some Travers Stakes as well as some national stakes races around the country, including this evening's Charlestown Classic on Friday as we record our podcast each and every Friday. Again, for our new audience tuning in for the Travers, we do this podcast each and every Friday where we handicap 8 stakes races for the weekend. We also have a Tuesday podcast. It's official, and Scott's part of Horse Sense with Bailey Armour each and every Thursday. So be sure to check out our podcast, not just here during Travers Week, but around the calendar. And Scott, the calendar doesn't get any better for the summer than this weekend.
Nah, this is the, they call the Midsummer Derby, the Travers. You know, obviously a little bit different than usual with a heavy favorite in a compact group, but this card at Saratoga always comes up fantastic. And we've got good racing elsewhere to kind of in a kind of a support role as other tracks have taken center stage kind of the other weeks. Del Mar will next week. But yeah, fantastic weekend and a fantastic Saturday.
You want big names? We've got them. Kentucky Derby winner Sovereignty, last year's Horse of the Year, Torpedo Anna. They're on the card at Saratoga. For those of you watching on our audio or our video podcast channels on X or within the Wager Guide, be sure to like this on YouTube and comment, help us grow the audience. And for those of you on our traditional audio podcast channels, whether you're on Spotify, Apple iTunes, wherever you listen to podcasts, Spreaker, here are the 8 races Scott and I will handicap over the next half hour or so. We'll start things off with the Saturday card at Saratoga. There are 6 stakes races on the card, 5 grade 1s. The 5 grade 1s go in succession, races 9 through 13, and that's where we will focus our attention on an all-stakes pick 5. The Personal Ensign Stakes for the Distaff division starts things off. 3-year-old sprinters in the H. Allen Jerkins, the older filly and mare sprinters in the Ballerina, the older male sprinters in the Forgo, and then the Travers Stakes, wrapping things up, of course, the Midsummer Derby at 1.25 miles. Notice among those 5 races on a big race day, they're all on the dirt. Mother Nature be damned. We're not worried about racing amongst the big ones. But wouldn't you know, the forecast for Saratoga is no rain today, no rain on Saturday. So we're going to get great weather, turf or no turf. Of course, we do have one turf stakes race at Saratoga on Saturday, that being the Lake Placid. As for Del Mar, we'll go west for the Pat O'Brien, a win and you're in. Breeders' Cup Sprint, Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile contenders going in the Pat O'Brien. And then we'll dial it back on the calendar and wrap up with tonight, Friday night's Big 2 at Charlestown on the Charlestown Classic card. The Charlestown Oaks will be our first of 2. That's race number 10 on the card. And then we'll look at the 7-figure Charlestown Classic, race number 11 on the card in West Virginia. A couple promos to tell you about. We've got a $5,000 exactathon on Saturday at Saratoga. Take down 6 exactas on that big 14 race card, and you'll get your share of $2,500. And if you're the handicapper who has the most exacta wins playing with First Bet and Express Bet on Saturday, you'll take down $2,500 in cash. If more than one person does it, you'll split $2,500 for having the most exactas on the card. $2 minimum on the exactathon on each play, and make sure that you register for the promos. Also want to remind you, Charlestown tonight, if you're playing that card in West Virginia, we've got a $5,000 hit and split in the late pick 4 and late pick 5. $2,500 in each wager, juicing your potential winnings there. You get your pari-mutuel winnings if you win the late pick 4 or pick 5, and you get an extra $2,500 split with just other players on the First Bet and Express Bet platforms if you're able to take down the late pick 4. And then again, the late pick 5 will have another $2,500 boost. So a lot of great wagering options this weekend. Let's start. It's all stakes pick 5, grade 1 company. Scott's got a written blog on this at ExpressBet and news.first.com, so you can check that out. You can also look inside the wager guide. Some of you are already in the wager guide. For those of you who are not, our Travers Stakes Wager Guide, where we team with VEASAN this year, includes all these races we're about to handicap here, but a different handicapper in each division. Some from the VEASAN horse racing team, some from the First horse racing team. We go through the entire process and program of the major stakes races on Saturday. Some multi-race tickets in there as well. Check out the free Travers Wager Guide. Go to first.com/guide, 1st.com/guide, and you can access the free Travers Wager Guide from First Bet and Express Bet. Personal ensign time, Scott. Let's get going. Race number 9 on the card. A mile and an eighth, named for the 1988 Breeders' Cup Distaff winner. She retired undefeated when she was able to rally and get by the great winning colors, the Kentucky Derby winning filly that year. Personal ensign was an absolute superstar on the track. We've got a superstar in Torpedo Anna, a defending horse of the year, a reigning horse of the year. I don't know if she can win her Horse of the Year title back this year. She's won 3 of 4 so far. If she wins this and the Breeders' Cup Distaff, probably not enough to get another crown. But she needs a win like this really to think that she's back to where she was last year. Her races to the point this year haven't been as good.
No, they haven't. And, this was a filly that was really, really good. I don't know if I'd call her great, but really, really good last year. Before the Travers, and going into the Travers, she ran her eyeballs out. She just never was the same, in my opinion. I mean, the Breeders' Cup Distaff, she got a big number, but there was no one in there, and she kind of walked on the lead. She hasn't been the same horse since. You might think I'm crazy because she's winning 3 of the 4 races, but the quality of competition has not been anywhere near up to what she faced even last year in a somewhat weak division. And when she did face a real Grade 1 field, she just got handled, a little bit of traffic issues. So she's a tough filly for me to get behind from a wagering perspective, although she's the likeliest winner in here, you have to think.
She's had 2 months off since her last start, and that's probably a good thing for her. Kenny McPeak really crammed some races into her schedule this spring. She prepped for the Apple Blossom, then she ran in the Apple Blossom, and then came back very quickly on about 3 weeks rest to run in that race, the La Troyenne, on Oaks weekend and Oaks and Derby weekend. And that's where everything kind of went off the rails for her. I don't know if it was running her back too quick, if it was the competition, if it was the little bouncing around on the first turn, and the fact that she didn't get the kind of good trip she normally is able to work out for herself. But she's in the 7 hole here. She's got 2 months off. She's got no excuse, and she's got some pace around her. I mean, obviously, she's not a dyed-in-the-wool front runner. She has made the front a couple times in her races, but she wants to sit 1, 2, 3 in a race where there's going to be some speed. Randomize on the rail can cook. Dazzling Move in the 2 hole can certainly go. Darth Vader pressed the pace last time out against Randomize. Bernie Takes Charge is cross-centered in a race on Friday. If she stays in the race, she's potentially more speed. So this race does look like it could set up for a closer. Do you trust Raging C, who was the defending champion in this race? She, like Torpedo Anna, though, seems like she's off her 2024 best form. She's got to kind of get a rebound.
I absolutely do not trust Raging C. She'll be a much better price than Torpedo Anna. She beat her in that La Troyenne, but that was her comeback race after, really showing some promise towards the tail end and much of her 4-year-old season. And then the La Troyenne, she got the setup, she got a good trip, and she just eked it out over Taxed and Randomized, her stablemate, who, as you mentioned in here as well. But the last 2 efforts are even better on paper, and they don't look all that great than they were in actuality. I think we've seen the best of her, and the thing to me, JP, is you look at the page, there's going to be a lot of pace, like you said, or at least it looks like that. I think she's going to get bet because people are going to want to close her.
I agree with that. I think she's kind of the default pick. I mean, if you handicap this race in 45 seconds, she's the one you kind of come up with because you're like, okay, speed, closer. I mean, it kind of does set up for her. She's the defending champ, so you do remove some of those variables. But I just don't like her last 2 races at all. And she's been working in company with Randomized several times since her last race. And I can tell you on video, watching these at first.tv, no question in my mind, Randomized is working better of the 2. And Chad Brown doesn't ask much of their horses in the morning, and they kind of always finish up on even terms when they're in a team workout. But the filly who's going much easier and better, the mare, Randomized, to me is the better of the Chad Browns. I ended up defaulting to her as my pick in here. I had this race for the wager guide because I think the variables are eliminated. She's speed, she's rail. It's a very short run to the first turn at 1 1/8 miles at Saratoga. We know she likes the track at Saratoga. She's working well. Her last race at Monmouth, she took a lot of heat. Darth Vader hounded her the whole way around the track, and she drew off. So I thought it was a good effort from Randomized. I'm going to take her. I want more than what the morning line price is saying, especially with Manny Franco, who's cold as ice in the saddle. Pratt jumps off, so that doesn't help us in terms of the pilot. But we know Franco's fairly capable over the years, but he's just in a slump right now. But it's going to help the price at least. I think if you get 6-8 to 1 on Randomized, she's the bet. But if she's 4 to 1, 9 to 2, then I'm not nearly as excited. I know you're trying to find somebody else in here as well.
Yeah, Leslie's Rose is my horse, and I think she's the one likely to take the money that you're hoping randomized doesn't. She's 9-2 on the line. David does, pretty much the best in the business, but he's not going to get everyone right. He obviously got the favorite right here. Leslie's Rose has not been consistent, but she's really coming into her own, it feels like, as a 4-year-old. I know that middle race, June 6th, the Ogden Phipps, is tough to take, but that was not just a sloppy track. That was a mess. Only one horse really fired that day in Dorth Vader. Dazzling Move ran fine as well, but I'm not going to hold that race against her because she comes back last time out, breaks sharp, like she never experienced that awful effort, and settled very nicely. You got Irad, who's doing everything right. I think Leslie Rose is going to get the right trip and is the horse that's kind of moving forward here. And I've kind of seen enough of the rest, not to say they're garbage, but I just don't know if any of them are going to run a career best right now.
Yeah, look, most of them are grade 1 winners, but are they in that grade 1 form right now? That's hard to say on many of these, but we know this. Leslie's Rose is coming off one of the best efforts of her career.
In third, Raging Sea has a lot of ground to make up, angling to the far outside as they reach the top of the stretch. It's Dazzling Move and Leslie's Rose. These two are well clear. Leslie's Rose gradually getting the Dazzling Move. 7 lengths back to Raging Sea in third. Leslie's Rose emerges with the lead under Irad Ortiz Jr. A sharp, shooby victory for Leslie's Rose, who scores by 3. Dazzling Move.
Let's go now to the sprinters because we've got 3 straight sprint races of significance, different divisions. 3-year-old sprinters first up, though. 7/8 of a mile of the trip in the H. Allen Jerkins, long-time race known as the King's Bishop. Of course, King's Bishop was a horse trained by Allen Jerkins, so upon his passing, it was a natural to name the race after the giant killer who did so many good things on the entire circuit and at Saratoga specifically. A very interesting cast in the Allen Jerkins here. Patch Adams won the Woody Stevens last time out on Belmont Stakes Day over the track here at Saratoga back in June. You've got Barnes, Midland Money, Matticat Road, all coming east for Bob Baffert. He's got 3 here. No Baffert horses in the Travers, but he's got 3 in the Jerkins. A couple horses in here that have changed barns, like Captain Cook. Verifier is a horse for Brad Cox, who's in great form. And Chancer McPatrick looked like perhaps a Travers horse after winning the Curlin at 9 furlongs. Now he turns back the 1 turn for Chad Brown, who will send another stablemate into the strategic focus into the Travers Stakes. Interesting cast. I couldn't figure this one out with much confidence, and I just went with a horse who looked fast in here to me. Midland Money, I'm just looking for speed on speed. I think Midland Money and Verifier are probably the 2 fastest horses in this race early. I think Captain Cook's also going to be kind of up on the pace, but they take the blinkers off that one. I think a horse forward might be the way to go in this particular spot. I took Midland Money, who's never run in a stakes to this point, but it seems a very aggressive placement by Baffert, so I'll take my shot there, but I have low confidence in this one, Scott. What do you think?
Tough race. One of those races that you hear everybody say you can make a case for just about anyone. Mm-hmm. Hopefully not too many of them are picking Patch Adams when they say that, even though I understand why Patch Adams is the favorite and a deserving one. One thing about him, JP, is he's never been on the rail. He's had a lot of more comfortable trips, in his career. Not to take anything away from him, but it could present a little bit of an issue. I think the pace is going to be honest. I don't know how many are going to try to go with Midland Money. His stablemate's unlikely to. Right. I'm hopeful that Captain Cook is not up there close and is a little bit further off. I think his hand was forced last time, being along the inside in the max field against the likes of Verifier and Smokin' Wicked, who got better trips. He still held together third. That was on a cutback too, so not necessarily a great time to go 22-1, 44-2 on the lead when you're used to slower paces. Blinkers come off, but most importantly, he moves to a barn that's had a really good summer, Todd Pletcher. And with the blinkers coming off and the outside post, I'm hoping he gets that mid-pack trip. The barn change leads him to a career best effort. And since I'm saying it's a wide open race, I might as well pick the longest shot on the board.
Yeah, look, the favorite Patch Adams has been favored in all 6 career starts, including last out when he won the Woody Stevens over Matticat Road. They're inside-outside bookends in the field for the Jerkins, and they were 1-2 under the wire on the Belmont undercard.
as they reach the top of the stretch. Macho Music, Matticat Road means business alongside, and in the center, Patch Adams is finding his best stride with a furlong left to go. Here comes Patch Adams, and he goes by Matticat Road. 3 lengths clear of Citizen Bull in third. Luis Saez and Patch Adams are home free in the Woody Stevens. Patch Adams scores by 3. Matticat Road was a solid second. Big Truz won the photo for third.
And as you see with my pick in here, Midland Money, I'm kind of doing what I did a little bit with randomize. In races that look very confusing and could go a million different ways, remove the variables. That's my handicapping angle. Speed on the inside is a good thing on any racetrack and any race anywhere. So if you have a race where you're just lost in trying to figure out what's going to happen in a race and you got to make a play, it's part of a multi-race sequence, or you're only there on track and you want to play every race on the card and don't want to pass any, eliminate the variables as much as you can. Find the horse who can get the lead in the inside and go with that. That's your best chance of winning in North American dirt racing. And that's kind of where I ended up here in the Jerkins. We'll see how it turns out. I think you'll get a fair price on Captain Cook, so a good shot in that one. Let's go to the Ballerina Stakes here. Race number 11, 7/8 of a mile. Again, the trip here. Ballerina, grade 1 company. It did not come up with a grade 1 caliber field, though. This is somewhere between a grade 2 and a grade 3 caliber field. And I don't say that to knock the field. I say that from a handicapping standpoint that you could win this race on a class rise. If you have a horse who's in really good form and hasn't been facing the level of competition that some of the others have, this isn't the elite level. Ways and Means would have been a heavy favorite in this race. Had to bypass the race, though. Unfortunately, wasn't able to make it for the start. Would have been a heavy odds-on favorite. This race, to me, doesn't have a superstar to it. And so if you have a horse you like in good form, Scott, go ahead and take a swing in this one. I know you did.
Well, yeah, Too Sharp is probably the other one that looked like she was going to be a big player in here. She won the winning colors against Hope Road, who's one of the favorites in here, and hasn't not only raced since, but hasn't been back on the work tab. But right. Yeah, Scylla to me is a very honest mare. She's had a great career. She's the 5-2 favorite. Hasn't been the same horse this year, in my opinion. You've got Hope Road, who I think makes plenty of sense out there. Maybe the likeliest winner in this field for Bob Baffert after chasing Too Sharp last out. But I think there's a horse, like you mentioned, that's kind of on the rise a little bit. And then that's number 5, Claret Beret. Third start off the layoff, or kind of first off the layoff, but third start since entering the Saffie Joseph Jr. barn. And man, she has taken off since moving barns. She dominated a field, which we'll take a look at, dusting a field at 3-5 in the first start, going the 1-turn mile at Gulfstream. But then more importantly, she kind of showed that she belonged, running a good second to Vava, who will not be here, instead running in Mountaineer in the Pink Ribbon. Am I right? Or Charlestown?
Charlestown, yeah, right.
Yeah, but this filly ran huge. She stalked clear 3 wide. She made an aggressive move on the turn and held together. Now it looks like Saffie found this spot on the calendar, clearly pointed to it, giving her time, gets IRAD. I think there's a lot to like here. I wonder if she's going to take a little bit of money, but maybe not, because like you said, she is on the rise.
Claret Beret, a big-time winner, 2 starts back. I want to show you this one because you don't see many races where the win margin is nearly 20 lengths. 19 3/4. Bring them home, Pete Aiello.
The leader now is Claret Beret. She has things well in hand, it appears, as the others are either too far back or very tired, some or both, as they straighten for the drive. It's Claret Beret. She's in the clear and widening the advantage. Welcome to South Florida, Claret Beret, the daughter of Not This Time. Welcome to South Florida, jockey Francisco Arrieta. Get out the wide angle. Claret Beret is easy money. She won the Mo Green by about 15 lengths.
If we get the easy money call out of Frank Miravaglio on Saturday, he'll have to pay rights to Pete on that one. Look, Claret Beret gets Irad Ortiz Jr., and I think that's pretty significant. To come to Saratoga in a grade 1 and land Irad, that's a big deal. And so I like her too, and I think a lot of folks are on this one. I know in our wager guide, Adam Burke from VEASAN has Claret Beret picked on top as well. So this is a horse who I think on the class rise, right? Haven't seen this one in a grade 1, But as we mentioned, there's no Vava here. There's no ways and means, and there's also no Too Sharp. So this isn't the absolute top of the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Sprint division. Copian would be another one you might put in that category. She's staying west and passed on this trip here for trader Richard Mandela. So probably the 4 leading favorites for the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Sprint, none of them are in the Ballerina. We don't get to say that most years. So this is one that can be won on the class rise. The 5 Claret Beret, top choice in here for a bunch of us trying to make that ascension up the grade 1 ladder. To the Forgo we go in race number 12, and we talk about grade 1 sprinters. We've got him in this race. Bookham Dano has been right there in everything this year. Mulligan's been in there everything in the last 2 years or so. This is another rematch between Bookham Dano and Mulligan. They were in the Vanderbilt and ran a bang-up 1-2 in that one. Let's go back and take a look at the Vanderbilt, see if we think it shakes out the same way, something different, or maybe a new face in here. But let's go back to Bookham Dano and Mulligan in the Vanderbilt.
The 1/4 mile to go. Mulligan got the jump at the top of the stretch. Bookham Dano and Paco Lopez in hot pursuit. These two square off, and Bookham Dano is up to take the lead. Mulligan trying his best, but he's back to second. 4 lengths back to Damon's Mound and Nakatomi. It's Bookham Dano in another stellar display, winning the Alfred G. Vanderbilt, going away from Mulligan. A tight photo between the 1/4 mile to go.
All right, let's pull that one back. That was a pretty strong effort, between the two of them. Mulligan, to me, may take a step backwards off of that race. That was a gutted effort, I think, when Bookham Dano was able to go past him there. I expect Bookham Dano to come back and run his race again. If one of those two doesn't, to me, I think Mulligan might be the one who's set to take a little bit of a step backwards. Interesting thing about this race, Scott, to me, is it's a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, not the sprint. And a couple milers in here for Brad Cox, Most Wanted in Bishop's Bay, have the 1 and 2 in here. And there's not that much early speed in this race at all for 7/8 of a mile. Both of these horses have shown some pace going longer. I think if either Bishop's Bay or Most Wanted can break within 2-3 lengths of the front coming out from the inside, if they're up in the early mix, I think one of those two might be able to pull the upset. But this race absolutely runs through Bookham Dano.
Yeah, good point about those two. I don't know if they're fast enough. Maybe they are. Most Wanted, maybe the more likely. Bishop's Bay is a mental midget to an extent. I know, and again, it wouldn't make a lot of sense looking at how many races he's won in a row, but he's been spotted to win. Now he's kind of getting that shot at the top company. He was supposed to be a Derby type horse or that kind of level. I don't know, JP. I mean, Bookham Dano and Mulligan kind of feels like Chiefs Bills. It's that rivalry that it's a good game every time, but who's going to win in the end.
Yeah.
And it's, at what point does Mulligan, like you said, regress because he's had his heart ripped out? Maybe he makes it one of these days. Maybe he just makes an easy lead one day. But the thing is that Paco is so good on this horse. He can put him wherever he wants him. I don't really want to get in the way of the freight train with Bookham Dano. I don't think he's a great wager if he's 8-5 or so in this field with the wild cards with the Cox horses to add to the mix. But I just think he's the best. I think he's one of the best in his division compared to the rest of the division at this point.
You mentioned Paco Lopez, the jockey at Bookham Dano. What a week he's having. He dominated the action at Parks on Monday or Tuesday when they had a big stakes card. I think he won 4 there. Yesterday at Colonial Downs, he had 9 mounts. I think he won 5 and had 3 seconds. I mean, it was insane. The week that Paco Lopez is having. He is absolutely dialed in. He'll have the favorite Bookham Dano. To me, I think if there's something odd happens in this race, it's one of the two Cox horses. So Most Wanted in Bishop's Bay. If you beat Bookham Dano in here, in race number 12, I don't know. I don't see him not running second, So if you like somebody to beat Bookham Dano, I don't think you're looking at exactas in here. And your win price, if you get a good win price. But I think maybe you look at daily doubles, race 12 to race 13. The 13th is the Travers, and if you think Sovereignty is a complete standout in the Travers, as many of you might, there's not a lot you can do intra-race in the Travers. Getting to him in race 12 is a good way of doing it, and if you beat Bookham Dano, the daily doubles could be very handsome in this race compared going to Sovereignty. So you might get more than double your money on a horse who's going to be 2-5. compare the win odds in this race to the daily double, you might get a factor of 2.5 by playing the double and on a 2 to 5 shot, because I think if you beat Bookham Dano, the doubles are going to open up for you in here. So I'm going to gamble with the 1 and the 2 in doubles and try to get the Sovereignty that way, and then I can just watch the Travers, hopefully with a live ticket. But if you beat Bookham Dano, you better get paid, because that horse is going to make you earn everything that you get in trying to knock him off. To the 13th we go, which is the Travers Stakes. 156th running of the Midsummer Derby, $1.25 million, and 1.25 miles the distance. It's not trite to say the 1.25 miles separates the good from the great in American racing, because it often does. And the 1.25 miles races are the elite races in America, right? I mean, the Breeders' Cup Classic, the Travers, the Kentucky Derby. We don't run 1.25 miles just for fun. So when you can say this horse can get 1.25 miles, he's got to get it at an elite level. Sovereignty has proven that. Many of the others in this field have to prove that. And if you're trying to knock off the favorite, I don't think you want to be doing it at 1.25 miles.
That's exactly. I mean, that amongst other things is a great point. But yeah, he's established himself at the 1.25 miles, while his 4 competitors have not. So you add that. Normally, I feel like that's a kind of a way you could kind of knock one of the, a favorite. Oh, well, he hasn't gone 1.25 miles, but this long shot has. Maybe that'll work. But that's not the case here with Sovereignty. And there you see him. When is this, the most recent drill? On August?
This is 2 back, August 9th. This is when he worked a half in 48 and 2. A lot of times with most trainers, the work 2 back is the one that they're trying to get most serious with. And then that final workout right in front of the race will be more of a maintenance move. So this was his important move, and everything you see out of here, to me, seems like Sovereignty is traveling just as well coming out of the Jim Dandy as he did coming into it. You don't get a great look with the low level here, but it's a good chance to see him in motion. And he seems to be holding his form. The Jim Dandy was a race that was obviously a prep towards this. He didn't take any big step back from the Derby and the Belmont in the Jim Dandy. He handled Baeza by a length. They were 9 in front of Hill Road and everybody else in that one. He's reaching out nicely. There's no sign that Sovereignty is ready to regress to me at this point, but we'll find out in the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, that's the interesting thing about it, is I don't see any signs either. And then you handicap this race, you're not going to get a great price on the other 2, quote unquote, logical runners in this field just because of math. And this horse would need to not fire to lose. I know we'll talk about magnitude shortly, but to me, I know he has as fast of races, but they're not, as you made a great point of starting the segment with, is it's not 1.25 miles against grade 1 company. I mean, speed figures are one thing, and he has run fast, and I'd be shocked if he, just dusted the field again. I wouldn't be shocked, but this is a gambling game, and I just don't think you're getting the price to try to beat this horse.
The time to get him was last time at the 1 1/8, which is a little bit shorter than his best. Obviously looking ahead to the Travers. Obviously not as important of a race as the Derby and the Belmont were to him. The time to get him was last time, and Baeza, a very good horse, ran his race and wasn't able to hold him off. So as we look back to the Jim Dandy Stakes, he did just enough to win that day, but blew everybody else out. And if he moves forward off of this, they're clearly running for second.
Made that bid, but drops back, and then Sandman there at the top of the stretch. Sovereignty is up to take the lead. He and Baeza in close quarters, but Sovereignty has the upper hand in mid-stretch. Baeza is trying his best to cling to him, but it's Sovereignty and Junior Alvarado still on top. And still with plenty left in the tank. Sovereignty scores in the Jim Dandy. Baeza ran.
Classic prep. Now, again, you expect him to move forward. This is really the other big target. I mean, since he won the Kentucky Derby, and the whole talk was, we're skipping the Preakness because we want a good horse for the Belmont and the Travers. This was on the tip of their tongue on the first Sunday in May. I mean, immediately after the Derby was over. So, Mott's going to have this horse absolutely cranked at a hilt for this spot. I expect the best race out of him. As you mentioned, look, it's only a field of 5. You've got 2 clear outsiders, and McAfee 20-1 in the morning line, Bracket Buster 20-1 in the morning line. What that means is your other 2 horses, there's just not enough math working for you to get any value out of them, like you're saying. If you're going to try to beat Sovereignty in here, if you had a field of 10 or 12, maybe the second, third choices in the race, you get a little attractive to you. But Magnitude's 2-1 in the morning line. Strategic Focus is 8-1 in the morning line. I get a feeling the public might pinch together a little closer on those two, but I still don't think if they're 3-1 and 6-1, I don't think that's value on either one of them to beat Sovereignty in this spot at 1.25 miles. Out of those two, Magnitude and Strategic Focus, let's talk about those two. Different running styles to some degree. Strategic Focus doesn't come from far off of it. He adds blinkers. He'll be kind of in the mix, but the horse who's expected to make the lead in here and should make the lead from the rail is Magnitude under Ben Curtis. He won the Risen Star back in February. He had some chips that had to be removed, a little flaking, a bone flaking, a minor surgery on that, but certainly keeps the horse out of action through the Triple Crown. His comeback race in the Iowa Derby was a good one. It was very smart placing. They got him on a very speed-favoring racetrack, which we see at Prairie Meadows consistently, in a race with very little competition against 5 rivals who were overmatched. Speed just went right to the front and did what he was supposed to that day. Is it enough to get him ready for the Travers, second off the layoff with a Hall of Fame trainer like Asmussen? It would be if this race was at 1.1 miles, but at 1.25 miles, you do question whether or not he can go that far off of just the one race since February. Let's go back and take a look at his Iowa Derby, and then I want to get a bottom line decision from you on what we do with Magnitude.
It's My Birthday swings widest into the lane as he tries to close ranks on Magnitude. Coming down to the final furlong, suddenly 4 lengths in front. Magnitude strutting his stuff in the Iowa Derby. It's just a matter of how far. 7, 8 lengths in front as they come through the final 16th. It is Magnitude, and he was ready to roll. It's My Birthday second, Mr. Omaha.
All right, Scott, did you like what you see enough to take him at a short price?
Well, I mean, I think that's the thing. I think he's the second likeliest winner of the race. I think there's a chance, a decent chance he wires the field, but it relies on Sovereignty not firing his best. And then you mentioned it. You have to also answer the distance question and the class question, because you look back, the Risen Star, he ran a huge number. That was a big surprise. He was 43-1, and it was very clear that day. Steve Asmussen and Ben Curtis knew before the race that the inside and speed was the place to go. More importantly, the inside. Ben Curtis, the plan was to do all he could to go from the far outside to the rail as quick as possible, and he did it well. But this horse has not really been anywhere near at this level of competition. To me, the question with him is, how does he respond when a horse like Sovereignty comes up to his neck? I think at 2-1, I think he might be below 2-1 with the math. I think he's a play against.
Okay, so what about Strategic Focus then? He's only run the 3 times. In the Curlin Stakes, he made the lead and kind of shut it down and idled. We'll take a look at that in a second. Now blinkers on, and Chad Brown passes on his 9-furlong winner of the Curlin Stakes. Chancer McPatrick turns him back in distance and sends this lightly raced gun runner out of a Curlin mare. He sends this colt going the 1.25 miles. What do you make of Strategic Focus?
Look, if he's the same price as Magnitude, I would say that he's probably a poor wager if you're thinking underneath or trying to beat Sovereignty. But I expect him to be a bigger price, and I just think he's got some upside still. He's got, I think one thing that we can be, as confident as you can be with a horse going 1.25 miles for the first time is he probably can get the distance. Chad Brown has pointed this horse to this race throughout. When he brought him back, I remember this horse being huge steam in that first level allowance. He should have won, and he was goofy in the stretch. But the blinkers going on, I think this horse has a significant chance to outrun Magnitude. When a race where it's tough to find value, I think that was to be found.
You hear the cliche with blinkers. You're either trying to get speed out of them or get them to focus a bit more. It rarely works when you're just trying to get speed out of them. A horse who's kind of a plotter, you put the blinkers on. Yeah, they show a little bit more forward, but it doesn't move them ahead. Think Sandman and some horses that they've tried that with in some more recent, big profile races. But Strategic Focus is aptly named because his focus is the problem. And you said, he lost focus and was wandering in the stretch when he was disqualified. And now watch this race in the Curlin. He looks like he's going to win this race by 4 at the top of the stretch and just says, I guess the race is over.
Focus takes command of the Curlin at the top of the stretch and opens up a 3-length lead. Chancellor McPatrick is now starting to roll on the outside, and here he comes. Chancellor McPatrick coming right after Strategic Focus as they come to the 16th pole, and So Sandy running a big race too, trying to spoil the party. So Sandy on the outside, just in front. So Sandy turned away at the wire by Chancellor McPatrick, who would not be denied. Strategic Focus finished third in the Curlin presented by Casamigos.
And yet he galloped out with the pair. So it wasn't a stop situation. Want to run that through there with the gallop out a little bit, because I think there's more to him. He's certainly, by gun runner out of a Curlin mare, as we mentioned, he's as bred as well or better than anybody in this race to go the 1.25 miles. So I think he'll be a major factor in this spot in terms of exacta players. I don't think he can beat Sovereignty off of just 3 career starts. I think the 1.25 miles will be okay for him. Even though he kind of got caught in the stretch there. But again, I don't think he got tired. I think he kind of just stopped running a little bit and thought that the race was kind of in the bag at that point. You know, he's lightly raced and inexperienced, and sometimes that comes back to bite a horse. I think the blinkers are really going to help him. So if Bracket Buster goes out and does the dirty work and kind of making that first move and trying to press Magnitude, I think it helps Strategic Focus. You don't want him to be the one who has to go after Magnitude. If he's got to go after Magnitude, then that could pay a price in the stretch for him. But if I had to bet an exact in this race, I'd go 4-3.
Yeah, that's the way I approached it, and actually covered this race in the VSiN First Bet Wagering Guide, and had to make a tough call on suggested wagers, but I didn't mess around. Just played a cold $50 exacta, 4-3, and a cold try, 4-3-1. And if it comes in that way, we'll have a big day. If not, no leeway.
Let's move on now from Saratoga's card on Saturday. We've got a couple more stakes to handicap around the country. We'll do these in a little quicker fashion. For those of you who are following just the Saratoga races, enjoy the rest of the wager guide. For those of you who might play some Del Mar in Charlestown this weekend, let's go to Del Mar for the Pat O'Brien Stakes coming up on Saturday. Pat O'Brien, 7/8 of a mile. Could be a prep for the Breeders' Cup Sprint at Del Mar. Could also be one for the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Field of 9 in here and some interesting runners. Speedboat Beach, we've only seen once since 2023 for trainer Bob Baffert. This was a horse who was 4th in the Breeders' Cup Sprint back in 2023. And May Moon, we haven't seen since February of 2024. So the Baffert horses are obviously the storyline in this one. They've been working in company together. Let's take a look at just a little B-roll of them working in the morning. This is at Del Mar on the 17th of August last week. In company from the starting gate, May Moon to the outside in the yellow cab, Speedboat Beach to the inside. Scott, we'll just let the fans watch this workout video and talk about these two contenders. Of these two, May Moon and Speedboat Beach, who do you like better on Saturday?
I like May Moon better, and I think he should be bigger price. I haven't seen the morning line as the time of recording, but you get Kazushi Camaro as Juan Hernandez. It looks like what's that?
He's 5 and then 5-2 on Speedboat Beach.
Okay, yeah, so no surprise. So I like the I like the 5-1 shot in May Moon, and I don't love him in this spot, but it is a kind of an optimistic placement to come back off that long layoff. The last time we saw him, February 11th, like you mentioned. It's been a while with Speedboat Beach, who came back in an unambitious spot to St. Matthews on Thurby, and he was bad that day. Got caught up, bled. I don't know. I think we've seen the best of that horse. Well, I think May Moon, hopefully for the connections, has more to give. He's only raced twice in his career.
Yeah, I couldn't gather much out of the workout video between the two and separating them. They obviously ran pretty much abreast of each other throughout. May Moon was to the outside of Speedboat Beach, and Speedboat Beach is drawn inside here in the race. So it was kind of a dress rehearsal, as they entered, before they entered. And it turned out that, that's kind of the way it may shake out on the racetrack as well. Speedboat Beach to the inside, May Moon to the outside, and trying to get him. The other horse who's farthest inside is Dr. Venkman in here. This is a horse who, in the Bing Crosby, disappointed last time out when finishing 4th. We talked a lot so far on this podcast about horses who were really good in 2024 that are pretty good in 2025, but don't seem to be quite as good. Dr. Venkman might be another one in that kind of category. 3 starts this year, the Triple Bend, the Kelly's Landing, the Bing Crosby, and he hasn't delivered yet. He hasn't run a bad effort, but he just doesn't seem like that knockout artist that he was last year.
No, I'm against him in this spot. Maybe it'll come back to bite me. I've liked him in his last two races, particularly in the Bing Crosby. And I just think, he's just not the same horse, to your point. It was easy to make an excuse losing to Nash to Nisos on May 31st in the Triple Bend off the bench. But the last two efforts clearly are not what we saw from him last year. So I'm going to let him beat me.
Earlier this meet, the Bing Crosby, July 26th, was the first of the big stakes races in the sprint ranks here at Santa Anita. Lovesick Blues won that day. It was a turf sprinter, took to the dirt tremendously. The Connection said this week they're just going to train up to the Breeders' Cup Sprint off that race July 26th in the Bing Crosby. So we don't have the A-list sprinter from earlier in the meet, and that was an upset in that one at a big price. So an interesting group here. We've got Stronghold, a horse who won the Santa Anita Derby back in 2024. He's cutting back in trip. We haven't seen him since the Pegasus World Cup back in January. So lay off, turn back, running well in the morning, maybe Stronghold, but 3-1 in the morning line on him is absolutely no gift basket. Express Train, a horse who's run longer. You see a couple of these horses in here that feel like Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile types, right? There's a couple different groups of horses in here. Horses who may be for the sprint, horses who may be for the dirt mile. Stronghold, Express Train, they seem more like the two-turn types trying to punch their ticket into the Breeders' Cup.
Yeah, Express Train to me, it feels like this is just a reach at this point. I mean, he was a course that they thought was a Derby-type mile and a quarter runner. Stronghold, on the other hand, I could make the case that maybe they're going to try to convince themselves that cutback would not be a bad thing. A lot of more sprinty pedigree on the bottom side. He ran well in the Bob Hope way back to kick off his career and ran very well to the Raging Torrent in the Malibu. So we'll see. Maybe if he runs well here, they'll keep him at one turn. But to your point, I'm sure the two-turn dirt mile would be very much to their liking as well.
Topalo's one in here, the 8-horse, 12-1 in the morning line. I'm going to take a shot with because I just don't trust a lot of the others in here. I think this is an interesting placement for this horse who's been pretty versatile. When he goes long, he can't quite sustain it long. 7/8 of a mile seems to be a good trip for him. His one start this year wasn't great, obviously, but it's second off the layoff, a chance to improve, and he's working pretty well. John Sadler could have sent this horse back to Charlestown if he wanted. A horse who ran last year on the Robert R. Hilton on the undercard of the Charlestown Classic. He could have tried to send him back 3 turns there and run in that race. He keeps him out here for the grade 2 Pat O'Brien. I think Tapalo is one who's interesting in here. He'll be my choice in the race at 12-1, the 8-horse in there in the Pat O'Brien. Speaking of Charlestown, let's switch gears now and head to West Virginia, the Panhandle there. You can make the trip from the Maryland racetracks to Charlestown in about an hour and 45 minutes. That's spoken by somebody who's done it many times, pulling double headers over the years. Day racing in Maryland, night racing in Charlestown. They've got a big card on Saturday night, so they start a little bit earlier on the program. And so they're going to start in the 5 o'clock hour with the first race on the card. But till we get to the features, the Charlestown Oaks in race number 10 and race number 11 will be in the 10 o'clock hour for the Charlestown Classic on Saturday night. Or Friday night. If you're handicapping Charlestown, one thing you want to keep in mind, this is the Bull Ring racetrack, 3/4 of a mile in total circumference. Length of the stretch, 660 feet. It is a tiny run from the top of the stretch to the wire. By converse, Churchill Downs, 1,234 feet, so almost twice as long the stretch at Churchill Downs than it is at Charlestown. You've got to be in it to win it. You don't necessarily have to be front-running speed and go wire to wire there, but midway down the backstretch, you would better be in the race when you get to the far turns. So let's talk Charlestown Oaks here. This is a big purse, $750,000. Grade 2 company in here. This race has had some really good fillies over the years. Vava in here a year ago. This race doesn't look as strong as it has been in some past iterations. So a horse stepping up in class to the grade 2 company could be effective in here. Another one like we talked about with the Ballerina, not the strongest edition of this race. So if you like a horse who's rising in class, I wouldn't be afraid to play here.
Thank you, because I'm not going to be with number 3 Top for Michelle Elliott, who's a solid trainer, but I'd have to think this would be one of the bigger wins in her career from a purse standpoint, probably the biggest.
Yeah.
And this is an Army Mule filly who ran second to a filly I think is very good in the Indiana Oaks, and Clico, I think is how you say it, for Brendan Walsh. But this is a filly that had been sprinting prior to that, and the pedigree suggests that that's what she wants to do. I think the 7 furlong, cutting back that distance, and to your point, she's not going to be on the lead on the cutback, but she has plenty of tactical speed, drawn along the inside. I think the favorites, Indy Bay has a good shot. I don't like Vodka with the Twist, the 2-1 morning line favorite at all. I like number 3 Top at 12-1.
Let's take a look at her race in the Indiana Oaks. She's in it, then gives way a little bit at the end. But like we said, at Charlestown, the much shorter stretch could play to her kind of style.
It's Top who leads coming toward the quarter pole. Deloraine and Clico, and here she comes. Clico is right there, coming with a bid now outside of Deloraine as they try to close down Top. Then GoldenEye Magic with Sturgeon Moon and Heavenly Sunsets dropped right away. 3/4 in 1 minute 10.36 seconds, and Clico has taken charge with 1 furlong to go. Clico pulling clear now by 3 from Top. Then Sturgeon Moon, Deloraine, and GoldenEye Magic is next. They're close to home. A toast to Clico. Clico of the Deli Racing Form, Indiana Oaks, and Clico well on top. Top was the runner-up.
Top choice for Scott here in the Charlestown Oaks. I'm going to give a look to Secret Faith in here. CJ McMahon, based rider in Louisiana. Jay Gellner, who's got horses in Louisiana and Oklahoma. This horse is very experienced under the lights and on the bull ring. Has really good form at Delta Downs. That's going to play well here at Charlestown. And we've seen some of these good Louisiana breds who win by the length of the stretch in races turn out to be pretty good. You know, Touch Upon a Star and some others over the years. So I'm going to give Secret Faith a shot in here because I think the horse is really going to fit these circumstances. Normally, you wouldn't say that you want a horse like this stepping up in class into a grade 2 race like this, trounced in the Fairgrounds Oaks against Good Cheer and company. But again, this is the kind of race that could take a horse on the class rise and elevate them in terms of form. So Secret Faith going to be my top choice in here. I'd be remiss if I didn't pick Andrea, my wife's name. So I've got to put her in the exacta in there somewhere. I remember when she debuted, I told my wife, there's a horse named after you. She won by 6.5. We watched it together. And I thought maybe she could be a superstar. She hasn't run in a graded stakes, but she comes off a win for Safi. Safi gets Jose Ortiz to ride. So maybe we can get a little home cooking in there for me in there as well. But I do like the Louisiana horse Secret Faith in here, Scott.
Secret Faith, CJ McMahon, my good buddy Anthony Martin is actually his agent. This is a big purse for him, so shout out. But yeah, the Louisiana breds have proven legitimate many times. The Fairgrounds Oaks, remember, this is 2 turns as well because of the 7 furlongs, right? But this is, that was much better competition and it, more of a true route.
Yeah, 7/8 of a mile. Charlestown will start at the top of the stretch, kind of like the Kentucky Derby gate placement, but with the circumference of the racetrack. Again, just 7 furlongs, but they'll start at the top of the stretch, run through the stretch the first time, and then make the full lap around. Now, the Charlestown Classic goes at 1 1/8, and that's race number 11 on the card. I believe this is the 18th or 17th running of the Charlestown Classic. $1 million race. Hard to believe. Back in the day when I was going to Charlestown as a kid, 75 grander was the big race, the Tri-State Futurity. Along came the West Virginia Breeders' Classics in the first 100 grander back in 86. Now they're running $1 million races at Charlestown. And a horse who's made a home there, Skippy Longstocking, back for a potential three-peat. Earlier this year, he won the Challenger Stakes at Tampa Bay Downs for the 3rd year in a row. So he's going for a double-triple, if you will, or a triple-double, however you want to say it. Skippy Longstocking trying to win the Charlestown Classic for the 3rd year in a row. His last race in the Whitney wasn't very good. He was not expected in that race against the upper echelon of the handicap division to run well at 20-1. Can he bounce back, Scott, to that Gold Cup form at Santa Anita where he won, or his form here at Charlestown where he's 2 for 2?
Well, he's the clear one to beat, but if you look back at those 2 races that he won in the Charlestown Classic, he was loose on the lead in both of them. Mm-hmm. Maybe that'll happen again, but when you look at this race on paper, I think he's going to have to work, and I'm hopeful that he's going to have to work a lot because I'm going to try to spring an upset here with a late pace Brisnet rating special and number 8 Gould's Gold, who is just 3 for 11. This would be a huge win for him. He doesn't even have a graded stakes win under his belt. Mm-hmm. But I think he's going to be able to take advantage of a very favorable race shape. And Brian Hernandez Jr., hasn't rode this bull ring a lot, but he's going to be as cognizant as possible of trying to save some ground. But Gould's Gold might be the one running fastest last at 12-1.
1 1/8 at Charlestown starts about 2/3 of the way down the backstretch, so there'll be 3 turns. They'll go into the first turn and then a full lap around the 3/4 mile racetrack. So he'll have an outside trip in there. Hernandez likes to save ground, though, so he's going to try to get him over as soon as he can. Maybe if he can get in and tuck it into that first turn, but certainly by the second turn, you expect Hernandez to have that one inside. But will they be able to catch Skippy Longstocking, who goes for the three-peat? Last year, he said no way.
They hit the far turn, 3/4 in 112 and 3. Skippy Longstocking now asked to sprint for home, and he opens up a length and a half. Up the rail, Kamorabino Amoide. He's running a big one, far outside Velociter. Frosted Departure, Coastal Mission looks for room at the inside. Then Warrior Johnny. Skippy Longstocking turns for home on top, opens up on a 3-length lead. Velociter runs after him, Kamorabino Amoide, and Coastal Mission, 16th pole. Skippy Longstocking is long gone. He goes back to back in the Classic. Scores by 5.5.
Kuramito Abide is the Japanese-bred horse in there who was in the race last year in the Charlestown Classic, gave way a little bit in the end to run third, beaten 7. I like the prep path in his last 2. They prepped him on the turf, and usually on the turf you're getting tighter turns to work with. And a couple of turf races in a row for this horse, and now going to the bull ring, I think he might run well here. I like this prep path. And so Kuramito Abide is a horse who are a mighty, the KO. I'm not even going to try to say it again. But that's going to be my upset choice in here. Robertino Diodoro's got, a high percentage, obviously, and he's bringing this horse back again a second time. I like those 2 turf races as the prep. And if we're going to beat Skippy Longstocking, he was third to him last year. I'm going to take a shot there. I'm going to try it one more time. Kuramito Amoide. That's going to be my upset pick in the Charlestown Classic.
Nice. I like it. The 2 turf to dirt angle for this hard-trying Japanese-bred Jeremy Plonk, picking a Japanese bred for, I'm going to go on record here and say the first time in the Charlestown Classic.
That would be, that'll be the first. I don't know how many Japanese breds have run at Charlestown over the years.
Well, that's why the odds were in my favor. I'm again.
Yeah, that's going to be a slim number for sure. So that's going to wrap up our handicapping. Good luck to you tonight playing those races at Charlestown. Again, a reminder, we've got $5,000 in hit and splits in the late pick 4 and late pick 5 at Charlestown tonight. The Oaks and the Classic are both part of that. They wrap up with the stakes race and the final race in the card and all those multi-race wagers as well. So it's an all-stakes pick 4, all-stakes pick 5, Charlestown coming up tonight. Again, $5,000 hit and split. Be sure to take part in the $5,000 exactathon on Saturday at Saratoga. Hit 6 $2 exactas, hit in 6 different races, hit a $2 exacta in 6 races or more, and you'll get your share of $2,500. And if you have the most exactas of anybody on First Bet and Express Bet playing on Saturday at Saratoga, you can bet as many per race as you want. But if you have the most total number of races won, you'll take down $2,500 as well. If you like playing Saratoga, you like betting Del Mar this weekend, Fun in the Sun is week 6 of 7 this week, our handicapping tournament. Just $25 entry fee. It's the last 5 races at Saratoga, the first 5 races at Del Mar each and every Saturday. There are 2 more qualifying weeks left, this Saturday and next Saturday, and then the final table will be set. The top 5 finishers each week make it to the final table, which will be Labor Day Monday. A handicapping tournament with a jackpot will be somewhere around $17,000 that you can play for on Labor Day against just 35 slots. It's a 7-week competition, 5 qualifiers every week. So you could be in for a 1 in 35 chance of taking down the top prize for $17,000 for just a $25 entry fee to play this weekend. So be sure to check out Fun in the Sun. And one last pop here, Scott. Let's get it out there for the wager guide again. First in VSiN. We've teamed this year for the free Travers wager guide. First.com/guide. Check it out. Handicappers from both VSiN and First Bet. Scott, myself, Bailey Armour, and company from Mike Somich in the group, Dave Tooley, Adam Burke, Ed Sehan, all the handicappers gathering up for the wager guide, which also has a ton of workout videos, stats and trends, the history of all these races, biographical sketches on each of the 5 contenders for the Travers, and much, much more. I've spoken too much. You get the final word. Happy Travers, everybody.
Yeah, lots of good stuff going on at First Bet and Express Bet between the VSiN wager guide, which, like you said, has kind of that all-stop shop. But then we're backing it up strong with our First Bet and Express Bet blog. I'll have a couple of blogs focused on the Travers Stakes card. One of them, the Exactathon promotion. One of them, the aforementioned, you mentioned the All Stakes Grade 1 Pick 5 analysis. So really looking forward to tomorrow. We're recording Friday, a little over basically about 24 hours from now. And I'll give a plug to my spaces, which starts at 8:30 a.m. for those looking to dive into the action with a cup of coffee a couple hours before they go to first post.
You see Scott's Twitter handle at the bottom there, at ScottShap34. So check out that Twitter Spaces on Saturday morning. Good luck in the Travers, everybody.